Hello everyone, welcome to Prince on Air, and today is our last topic lecture of chapter 1 solid state, that is electrical and magnetic properties of solids. So in this lecture, in that particular lecture, we will discuss about the electrical and magnetic properties of solids, and we will classify that solid on the basis of their conductivities also and their magnetic properties also. Okay, so means firstly in this section we will discuss about the two topics. Firstly, the electrical basis, okay, the electrical properties of solids, and then magnetic properties of solids. And firstly, we will divide the solids on the basis of electrical conductivity, and then on the basis of magnetic properties or magnetic fields, okay, means magnetic field effects. Clear? So let's start the topic here and write their notes side by side. Okay. In each and every lecture, I am saying continuously that you have to write their notes side by side. So now. So electrical properties of solids. Okay, all of you know that some solids are conductors, some are insulators, some are semiconductors. You know very well. Okay, means those solids which can conduct electricity, that are known as conductors, and which cannot conduct electricity, they are considered to be as insulators, and which can conduct electricity or of that very less amount. They are just considered to be as semiconductors. So you can say they can behave as both conductors and insulators. Clear? So now here on the basis of the conductivities, we will divide the solid into various categories. Okay. So here the magnitude of conductivities of solids varies from 10 raised power minus 20 to 10 raised power 7. Okay, means that is the conductivity order. Okay, that is the conductivity order. If you will draw a scale, and if you will divide it into the 7 scales, okay, 7 divisions, 27 divisions, clear? So that lower conductivity area will occupied by the insulators, and the higher conductivity area will occupied by the conductors, and the middle one will be for semiconductors. Okay, so in that way we will divide the conductors, semiconductors, and insulators into three categories. Okay, so firstly the conductors, its conductivity range from 10 raised power 4 to 10 raised power 7 per ohm per meter. Okay, that is the conductivity order for the, or you can say range for the conductors. Clear? And in that particular case, if those elements or metals or solids which are having that 10 raised power 7 per ohm per meter conductivity, they are considered to be as good conductors. Okay. Obviously, we know that which are having higher conductivity, they are considered to be as good conductors. Clear? Now, insulators, their conductivity will be from 10 raised power minus 20 to 10 raised power minus 10 per ohm per meter. Okay. And semiconductors, that will be in between these range. That will be 10 raised power minus 6 to 10 raised power 4 per ohm per meter. Clear? Okay. So now, that order you have to know very well. Now how we can know that order? See, firstly you can memorize that particular order, this one. Okay, 10 raised power minus 20 to 10 raised power 7. Okay, then 10 raised power minus 20 to 10 raised power 7. Okay. Clear? Now, 10 raised power minus 20 to 10 raised power minus 10, that is for insulators. Okay, that is for insulators. Okay, then afterwards 10 raised power minus 10 to 10 raised power minus 20. Okay, here you can say it is for 10 raised power, wait, for semiconductors, 10 raised power minus 6 to 10 raised power 4, means here it is 10 raised power minus 6 to 10 raised power approximately 4 here. Okay, that order may vary from one particular area to other. Okay, because we are following the NCERT, so in NCERT it is written like this. Okay, so that is the semiconductors. Okay, and for 10 raised power 4 to 10 raised power 7 it is conductors. So from here to here that conductivity is increases. So just in that the scale form you can memorize it. Okay, or you can take from 10 raised power minus 10 to 10 raised power 4 here. Okay, majority of the particles are here comes out to be semiconductors. Clear? Now, next one. So conduction of electricity in metals we have to discuss first. Okay, here we will discuss only the conduction of two. No doubt insulators we will discuss, but not in detail. Only in detail we will discuss about semiconductors, and for metals just in this way. Okay, so conduction of electricity in metals are due to the free electrons. All of you know that metals are having free electrons, that's why they can conduct electricity. Okay, so similarly what we have seen here, that is explained on the basis of band theory that we will discuss in physics also, on the basis of band theory. Okay, band theory. Okay, so in that particular form there are two bands. One is conduction band and second one is valence band. Okay, so lower one is valence band and upper one is conduction band. Okay, lower one is valence band, upper one is conduction band. Lower one is valence band, upper one is conduction band. So in particular metals, those metals which are having larger number of valence electrons, larger number of valence electrons, and which can be free or which can be donatable, or which that electron can be donated. Okay, so that are considered to be as the good conductors, because that electron can be shifted from one form to another, one particular atom to the another. Okay, so here you can see that you can see that bands here, these bands are overlapping with each other. Okay, here energy level is shown. If the distance between that level gap between, here you can see that no gap is there. Here you can see they are just overlapping with each other. So if the energy gap is higher, then we need to provide extra energy to just jump from lower band to upper band, means valence band to conduction band. And in that way, if there is easiness to move the electron from valence band to conduction band, then we can say there will be the conductivity occurs. Okay, or you can say the conduction occurs. So now here, in case of metals, here it is metals, there is overlapping. So here there is no requirement of any extra amount of energy. That electron can itself jump from valence band to conduction band, and in that way they will show the conductivity properly. Okay, so that's why they are good conductors. But in case of insulator, you can see there is a large gap, that energy gap is there. So in that large energy gap, it is known as forbidden zone. Okay, forbidden zone means why it is known as forbidden zone, because there is no electron. Here it will no any electron. So now here we will provide extra amount of energy so that that electron can jump from lower band to upper band, means you can say, wait. Yes, in that particular form, the lower, okay, in that particular form, the lower band, in that case we have to apply extra amount of energy so that the lower electrons can jump from lower part to the another part, okay, upper part, that is of conduction band. So due to large energy gap, they will show negligible amount of conductivity. And in this case, energy gap is small, So there will be, if we are applying extra amount of energy, the electron can jump from valence band to conduction band. In that way, we can say they will conduct electricity by applying some amount of external energy. Okay. So on the basis of valence band theory, that is the valence band theory here. So here on the basis of this theory, we can just classify three types of metals which are having which means metals in which the conductivity occurs, insulation occurs, and semiconduction occurs. Okay. So here we have discussed all that part. Okay. Conductors, insulators, and semiconductors. Okay. Now, in particular, that conduction of electricity in semiconductors, firstly, the two terms you will see that are intrinsic semiconductors. What are intrinsic semiconductors here? Means actually in actual form, semiconductors cannot behave as a conductors. Okay, because their conductivity is not so much high. We can't use them as a conductors. So what we have to do? If you will increase the temperature of semiconductors, they will show larger amount of conductivity. Okay. So here they are just behave as intrinsic semiconductors, means in which we are applying. If you will increase the temperature, their conductivity will increase. Okay. Clear? Now, next one is, if you want to increase their particular conductivity, the process of addition of impurities is there. Okay. So that is known as doping. So it means addition of impurities in semiconductors to increase their conductivity. Okay. To increase their conductivity, there is a need of addition of impurities, and that process is particularly known as doping. Okay. Clear? Now, there are so many types of processes in which we can do the doping. Okay. Electron-rich impurities, that is known as N-type semiconductors. Electron deficient impurities, that which are known as P-type semiconductors. Okay. So that we will discuss here. In this category, we will discuss about the N-type semiconductors or electron-rich impurities. Okay, that effect we have discussed in the last sections. Okay, impurity defect or the electron-rich defect or electron deficient defect. Okay, the metal excess defect, metal deficient defect, that we have discussed already there. Huh? So now here we will discuss about the electron-rich impurities. In this particular case, what we will do? We will take that semiconductor, like semiconductors we are taking from the group 14 elements. Okay, that's of sulfur. So from silicon, sorry. Okay, silicon is having valence electron equals to 4. So it can join with four other electrons, or you can say the elements which are having 4 electrons to make the covalent bond properly. But if you will take that, if you will join that silicon with some that type of elements which are having more than 4 valence electrons or less than 4 electrons, in that way there will be a particular types of semiconductors formation is there, and in that case the conduction will increase, or the conductivity of that particular semiconductor will increase. Like here some example is given to you. Here silicon is joined with phosphorus. Okay, silicon is joined with phosphorus. In silicon, total number of valence electrons are 4. In phosphorus, total number of valence electrons are 5. Okay, clear? So here you can see in the silicon we have just placed phosphorus here, like in the impurity defect. Okay, there was a sodium and strontium we have placed there. Now, phosphorus 4 electrons of phosphorus will join with the 4 electrons that adjacent 1 electrons of silicon, and it will form covalent bond there. But one electron, this one electron is free electron. This one electron is free electron, and that particular one electron will show the conductivity here. That one particular electron will show the conductivity here. So in this case, electrons are greater, the number of electrons are higher. Okay, so that's why it is known as electron rich impurities. That is known as electron rich impurities, and negative charge is greater on that particular substance. So that's why we can say it is as N-type semiconductor. Clear? Is it clear now? That is the simple part. Okay, so if you are having that elements of group 14, and if you will join that group 15, which are having larger number of valence electrons, that way they will form N type of semiconductors. That we will discuss in the later on. That I will show you in the periodic table also. Okay, so let's move on to the next part. Similarly, for p-type semiconductors, okay, for p-type semiconductors means electron deficient impurities. In this case, silicon is joined with the elements of group 13. In this case, it is joined with the boron. Okay, and in that way, boron is having 3 valence electrons, 1, 2, and 3, and silicon is already having 4 electrons. So the 3 electrons of borons are joined with the adjacent 1 silicon, but here 1 electron of the silicon is unpaired. Okay, that is not bonded with the boron. And one more thing, that is the hole placed here. Hole. Okay, that hole means vacant space. And to cover this hole, the adjacent electron will shift towards this side. Okay, and if they will shift towards this side, the one hole that one more hole will be created there. So in this case, there will be the motion of electron side by side hole. We are saying here it is the motion of positive charge, because here is a motion of hole. Okay, and that's why this is known as p-type semiconductor. Okay, and here there is a deficiency of electron. That's why it is the electron deficient impurities, because we have placed that element which is having less than 4 valence electrons. Okay, so that is why it is known as electron deficit or electron deficient impurities defect, or you can say electron deficient impurities type of semiconductors. Okay, clear now? Is it clear? Any doubt? Yeah. One more time I will explain it. Here, silicon and borons are just mixed together, and in that way, boron is having 3 electrons, silicon is having 4 electrons. Whenever they will combine with each other, 1 electron of the silicon will unpair, because no sharing is there. Okay, only 1 electron is shared. There is a need of 1 more electron for the sharing, but in that case there is a hole created. Okay, that hole is created over here. You can see this one. So that hole, that particular hole, is the responsible for the conduction. Okay, and that hole is of positive charge. You can say we are considering it is of positive charge. So that's why it is of p-type semiconductors, and that are also known as electron deficit impurities. Okay then, clear? So means if you having 14 group, and if you will join it with the 15 group elements, means 14 group is like silicon, germanium. Okay, clear? So in that case, if you will join the 14 group elements with the 15 group, that will show electron rich impurities, means N-type semiconductors will form. And if you will join 14 group element with the 13 group elements, they will in that particular case this will happen, means there will be the deficiency of electrons, and in that way the p-type semiconductor will form. Okay, clear? That we can see here. Now, applications of N-type and p-type semiconductors. What are the applications of N-type and p-type semiconductors? First one is these types, these two types of semiconductor will join to form the diodes. Okay, they will form diodes which are used as a rectifiers. That you will study in physics also. Rectifiers. What are the rectifiers? Okay, that you will study there. Clear? Afterwards, transistors are used whenever we will make the sandwich. Sandwich in that case, that N type, in which the one type of semiconductor will be sandwiched between the two other types of semiconductors. Like P is sandwiched with NH, NN, N is sandwiched with P and P. Okay, like in this way. Here P and N. Okay, that is sandwich, or P and P. Here in this way. Okay, so that type of semiconductors that will form transistors. Okay, that will form transistors, and that transistors are very useful to detect or amplify the radio or audio signals. Okay, next one is photodiodes, that are photoelectric cell, you can say. Okay, means which we are using as a photochemical cells or photoelectric cells. Okay, to generate the electrical energy from the light energy. Okay, clear? Actually, this one is a theoretical part here. Now, some examples that are similarity with the group elements, germanium and silicon. Now, if you want to make the elements, if you want to make the semiconductors, how we can make that last type we have discussed, no, P type and N type. See, here we have taken the silicon as an example. Similarly, we can take an example for the germanium also. And in that particular case, which type of semiconductor will be generated? Here you can see combination of group 13 with 15. Okay, see that group 13 elements are and group 15 elements are this. Actually, we know that best semiconductors are silicon and germanium, and they are having the valency equals to 4. So to behave the to make the elements or the compounds which can behave like semiconductors of silicon and germanium, how we can make it? To make the average, their average should be, average valency should be 4. Okay, so to make like in this way, what we can do? We can do in combine indium with Sb. Okay, here see that color I can change. In with Sb of group 13 and 15. Okay, clear? Similarly, Al and P, aluminium phosphorus. Okay, then gallium and acetylene, Ga and As. Okay, so you can see that we are just joining Al and P, Ga and As, In and Sb. So in that way you can learn that examples also. Okay, that 13 group element joined with 15 group, they will form a similar semiconductors of the silicon and germanium. Okay, similarly we can do one more combination of group 12 and 16 also. So 12 group is and 16 group is clear. So there, if you join them, then the valency, average valency comes out to be which is equal to silicon and germanium part. Okay, so here Zn and S, okay, they are joined. Then CD and S, then CD and SE, then Hg and TE, okay. So they will join to form the similar semiconductors as of silicon and germanium. Some other transition elements are there which can make the semiconductors. Okay, like TiO behave like its semiconductors. Okay, CrO2, ReO3 like metallic copper. They will be that particular element, that particular compound will behave like a copper as metal. Okay, and some other transition elements like these, they can show metallic or insulating properties depending upon the temperature. Okay then, clear? Yes, now we have to discuss about the magnetic properties. See, in each element, in each component, some magnetic properties are there. Because all of the elements are made up of atoms, and all that atoms, there is subatomic particles are there like electrons and protons and neutrons. Okay, so here electrons are continuously revolving. So like in this case, you can see, suppose this one is the nucleus, and here this one is electron, and electron is revolving like in this way, and it is also rotate towards itself. Means there will be two types of motion. Okay, orbital motion and spin motion. Okay, of that electron. So here electron is having the orbital motion and the spin motion also. And due to that particular case, if charge is rotating, then it will create a magnetic field. Okay, in that case, it will create a magnetic field. Here you can see that it is a nucleus here. It is a nucleus here. And electron is just revolving around it. Okay, but in this case, electron is rotating towards itself. Okay, that is its spin. So due to this case, that magnetic moment formed, and in that way you can say that it will create a magnetic field. Okay, clear? So due to this case, that magnetic field occurs in the particular atom or even in the solids also. Okay, so see, the categories of solid on the basis of magnetic properties, we have that different types of categories of solid on the basis of their magnetic properties. There are 5 types of five magnetic properties. On the basis of magnetic properties, we have divided solids here. Okay, so now first one is paramagnetic, diamagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, ferrimagnetic. Now we will discuss about these. What are paramagnetic? Paramagnetic are those type of magnetic substances which can easily attracted towards the magnetic field. Okay, or attracted in the magnetic field. Okay, and diamagnetics are those substances which will feel repulsion. Okay, little bit repulsion in the magnetic field. Ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetic we will discuss in the later on. I will just tell you the little bit about. I am just telling the little bit about these things. Ferromagnetics are those substances which can get permanently magnetized when they will place in the magnetic field. Okay, so they are just strongly attracted towards the magnetic field. Clear? Antiferromagnetics are just opposite to the ferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetics are little bit attracted towards the magnetic field. That all things, that three parts we will discuss in this way. Okay, that different way. Clear? Now firstly we have to discuss about the paramagnetic in the proper sense. Actually these are weakly, you can say, attracted towards the magnetic field, and in that case they are magnetized in the magnetic field in same direction. Okay, you can say magnetized in the magnetic field in that particular side in which the magnetic field is going on. Okay, clear? Diamagnetics are just, you can say, here paramagnetics can be get magnetized whenever there is a applied magnetic field occurs. If you will remove the magnetic field, the paramagnetic character will also removed. But in case of diamagnetic, they are just repelled. Okay, they will feel repulsion in the magnetic field. Okay, so that is the basic difference between these two. That all that difference we will discuss in the next slide also. Next is ferromagnetic. What are ferromagnetic here? Ferromagnetics are that type of solids, okay, magnetic substances in which they are strongly magnetized or attracted towards the magnetic field. Okay, whenever these types of solids are placed in the magnetic fields, they will get so much attraction. Okay, and you can say they will get permanently magnetized because in the firstly their domains are random and just cancel out each other. Now what are domains? Actually there if we will divide that particular solid into two categories, the domains will occur, and that domains are just, you can say, the motion that are showing the motion of electrons which are carrying the magnetic field. And if the motion, or you can say the direction of the motion of the particular particles are in that direction, in the same direction, they will show the magnetic field in that particular direction. Okay, like if the magnetic field is like in this way, and we are placing the domains are just, you can say, the motions that are showing the motions. And if the electrons domains are in opposite direction, they will not show any effect in the magnetic field, resultant effect. But if they are in same direction, they will increase the magnetic field, resultant increase in magnetic field. So here, actually in the first case, they are just in the random form, but whenever we are applying that external magnetic field, in that case, the domains are in same direction. You can see that. So A particles that are showing the paramagnetism. Okay, paramagnetism. Sorry, not it's so paramagnetism. Because paramagnetism we have discussed in domain case, these are paramagnetism. Okay, clear? Next one is antiferromagnetism. Antiferromagnetism, in which the domains are cancelled out even on applying the external magnetic field. So these, you can say, up, down, up, down, up, down. So resultant will be cancelled out, and the resultant comes out to be 0 here. Means they will not show any effect in the magnetic field. And in ferrimagnetism, okay, some are in the same direction and some are just anti-parallel to each other. Okay, so some are cancelled out. Here you can say these are cancelled out, these are cancelled out, but there will be some resultant magnetic field. That's why they are little bit attracted towards the magnetic field. Okay, so due to this factor, means some are parallel with each other in the magnetic field also. So that's why they are just showing the little bit magnetic effect also. Like here you can see. Now we can just understand that properly. If you can't understand the previous one, diamagnetic. Okay, diamagnetic. What are diamagnetic? Diamagnetic. Actually, they are repelled weakly in the magnetic field, such as solids have only paired electrons. Okay, in which the solids are having paired electrons, they are just showing the diamagnetic character. That I forgot to tell you about that. Okay, like here you can see that they are having magnetic alignment, and in that particular case, electrons are paired. No free electron is there, so they will not show any magnetic character in the magnetic field. Okay, and that we will discuss in the next in your, I think you have discussed in the last class also, in 11th. Okay, MOT, molecular orbital theory. In that particular case, we have discussed that those elements which are having, those molecules which are having unpaired electrons, they will show paramagnetic character, and those are showing, those are having paired electrons. Means no unpaired electron is there. They are showing diamagnetic character. So that same is there. Okay, examples are benzene, NaCl, TiO2, V2O5, etc. And these applications are they just behave as an insulator. Now next one is paramagnetic. Paramagnetics are those in which they have unpaired electrons weakly attracted in the magnetic field. They cannot be permanently magnetized. Okay, and here you can say that the domains alignment are just random here. Okay, and on applying a magnetic force, they will get magnetized just. And having the unpaired electrons, they are showing that unpaired electrons also. Examples are O2, VO, CO, CuO, TiO. So they are used as electronic devices. Okay. Next one is ferromagnetic. ferromagnetic. So in this case, they also have unpaired electrons and strongly attracted in magnetic field, and such solids can be permanently magnetized. That is the most part here. They can be permanently magnetized, and on heating to a temperature, that particular temperature that is known as Curie point, these solid changes as the permanently paramagnetic solids. Okay, means if you will apply, if you will increase that their temperature at a particular temperature that is known as Curie temperature, Curie temperature. Okay, and in that case the ferromagnetic substances will change to the paramagnetic substances. Okay. Next one is antiferromagnetic substances, in which these solids are change electrons align themselves in such a way that resultant magnetic moment is zero. Okay, resultant zero. You can see that their alignments are anti-parallel to each other. Okay, examples are Cr2O3, COO, CO3O4, Fe2O3, MnO2, used in the instrument of magnetic susceptibility measurement. Okay, so these all are used there. Clear? Next one is ferrimagnetic. Unpaired electrons align themselves in such a way that there is a net magnetic movement. Means net magnetic movement will be there, but some are cancelled out each other. So here you can see these are cancelled out, these are cancelled out. Okay, so many are cancelled out. Examples are Fe3O4. Okay, so here that alignment is shown there: paramagnetic, antiferromagnetic, ferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetic. Okay, clear? If you want to take that screenshot, or if you want to capture the picture, you can save it. Okay, now some question is there, that is all that questions which were asked in your back exercise and some other questions that we have already discussed side by side. Okay, that question we have discussed, like ferromagnetic, ferrimagnetic differences are there that we have discussed now in the particular last slide. Now that one or two questions is there that we have to discuss here. A group 14 element is to be converted into n-type semiconductor by doping it with a suitable impurity. To which group should it impurity belongs? Okay, so for that is a 14 group element, no? 14 group element, and you have to make it into the n-type semiconductor by doping. So 14 group element, if you increase the charge, then or you can say number of electrons in the particular case, then we have to add impurities from the 15 group element. So in that way it will form n-type semiconductors. So we have to join them with the group 15 elements here. Okay, we have to join them in the particular case, that is with the 14 group elements. So n-type semiconductor means conduction due to presence of excess of electrons. Okay, conduction of electrons in the excess of electrons, and in that case therefore it converts 14 group into n-type semiconductors by joining with 15 group elements. Okay, clear? So just there is a need of 15 group, means which we have to join 15 group. Next one. That is the end of this session. Okay, thanks for watching this video, and keep studying, keep motivated, and be at home. Okay, stay at home. So thanks for watching this video.